In the tranquil heart of the Sunnydale Bird Garden, a place usually filled with the melodic chirping of birds, a sudden commotion caught the attention of Avery, the dedicated bird keeper. A hawk, not usually seen in this serene sanctuary, swooped down in a flash, targeting a defenseless songbird. Avery, heart in her throat, rushed towards the scene, expecting the worst. But as she arrived, her eyes widened in disbelief at the remarkable turn of events unfolding before her. Avery had worked at the bird garden for a year now and had loved every minute of it. She always had a passion for birds and the outdoors. She just never thought she would actually make a career out of it. But here she was, happily strolling through the garden, listening to the chirping birds. It was a serene feeling for as long as it lasted at least. Suddenly, it was dead silent. It seemed like all of the birds had stopped chirping at the same time. Avery knew this was a bad sign. She looked up at the sky and, you guessed it, there was a huge hawk circling above the garden. The hawk's piercing screech echoed through the trees, scaring not only the birds, but also Avery. She did not want her eyes to be put out by such a large hawk, so she quickly made her way to an arbor in the middle of the garden. She waited safely under the roof for the hawk to leave, but it continued to circle above the garden. There was only one reason a hawk would do that. It had spotted its next meal. Avery's heart pounded in her chest. This bird garden was a sanctuary, not only for healthy birds, but also for recovering birds. She felt it was her duty to protect them against this hawk. But how on earth would she figure out which of the birds the hawk had its eyes on? It was an impossible task, but she couldn't give up. As she stepped out from under the gazebo, the hawk screeched again. Avery watched as the hawk dove down right into the bird garden. "Hey!" Avery yelled. "Get away!" She ran toward the hawk with her arms swinging around, hoping to scare the hawk away. The hawk quickly flew back up into the sky, but it didn't go away from the garden. It circled around for a few more minutes, probably waiting for Avery to go away, but she wasn't planning to do so. She stayed put as the minutes ticked by. She wouldn't forgive herself if one of the birds got hurt during her shift, even though she did all she could. So, she sat down on the ground, keeping an eye on the hawk. After about half an hour, the hawk flew away. Now Avery could breathe easy again, or so she thought. She got up from the ground and began to walk towards the staff room when she suddenly heard a deafening screech, and it wasn't from the hawk. One of the birds was screaming bloody murder, but which one was it? Avery whipped around, frantically scanning every inch of the bird sanctuary. She had no idea where the hawk could be or which bird it could be tormenting. Her heart was pounding in her chest as she began to run around, hoping to bump into the hawk. "Hey!" she yelled again, tears welling up in her eyes. She couldn't bear to listen to the bird's hurt-filled screeches. Suddenly, one of her co-workers came running into the garden. "Avery, what is that sound?" she frantically asked. "A hawk is attacking one of the birds, but I don't know which one. You have to help me, Jamie. Please," Avery pleaded. Her co-worker confidently nodded in agreement. "You take this side, I take the other side. Together, we will find the bastard." Avery felt hopeful with the help of her co-worker. She ran to the right and Jamie to the left. They looked behind every bush and in every tree, but there was no sign of the hawk. Suddenly, the bird's excruciating screeching stopped and the hawk's piercing screech echoed through the bird sanctuary. "Jamie, have you found them yet?" With every second that ticked by, Avery felt her hope slipping away. And now that it was dead silent, she feared the worst. She looked in every birdhouse she saw, in every nest she could reach, and by every water fountain, but there was no hawk. "How can such a big bird be so hard to find?" she asked her colleague when they found each other again. Jamie panted heavily, shrugging her shoulders at Avery's question. "It's eerily silent, huh?" she said, with a gloomy look on her face. But Avery wasn't willing to give up just yet. "Let's check the rehabilitating bird nests," she suggested, but Jamie wasn't sure. "Those nests are surrounded by glass and monitored by cameras. I'm sure someone would have seen the hawk on the security screen by now." But Avery didn't want to leave a stone unturned, so she ran toward the rehabilitating section of the bird garden. She didn't have the right keycard to open the door, so she banged her fists on the door, hoping someone would hear her. Jamie came after her, as she didn't want to leave Avery on her own, and began to bang on the door as well. Sadly, no one opened the door. Strange. How can nobody hear us? Whose shift is it? Ava asked as she looked at Jamie. Let me check the schedule, Jamie said as she took out her phone. As she read her email, Avery could see a change in Jamie's expression. Shit, she said. It's Dave's shift, and you know what that means. He's probably asleep. Avery finished Jamie's sentence. Ah, this is the worst day of my life, Avery yelled. Dave, open the door. Jamie sighed. This isn't going to help. I might know another way in, but we have to be lucky. I always leave the window open in the women's bathroom when I have a shift at the rehabilitation section. Avery and Jamie hurried to the women's bathroom. The window was slightly open, as Jamie predicted. Avery, with a mix of fear and resolve, followed Jamie's agile climb through the small opening. The cool breeze greeted them as they entered the rehabilitation section, their hearts racing, minds focused on the mission ahead. Despite the risks, their determination to save the birds was unwavering. Squeezing through the narrow window, Avery felt the strain. Inside, they steadied themselves, aware of their trespass in the restricted area. Jamie landed softly, whispering, "Quick and quiet." Avery nodded, her thoughts racing with concern for the hawk and the birds. The urgency of their mission left no room for hesitation as they prepared to navigate the unknown challenges of the rehabilitation section. They landed softly on the cold, tiled floor. An eerie silence enveloped the rehabilitation section, heightening their unease. "This silence is not right," Avery whispered, her heart pounding. They cautiously stepped out, enveloped by the quiet. Every sound, from their light footsteps to the faint creaks, seemed amplified in the stillness. Driven by urgency, they moved forward, intent on uncovering the truth. Venturing deeper, the dim lights cast shadows in the corridors. "We have to find that hawk," Avery stated, her voice firm. Jamie suggested splitting up to cover more ground. Reluctant but understanding, Avery agreed, ensuring her phone was silent. They parted ways, each driven by a strong resolve to protect the birds, despite the daunting silence and sprawling corridors of the rehabilitation section. Avery assessed her surroundings swiftly. The rehabilitation section was a maze of enclosures, each housing vulnerable birds. She checked each area, looking for any signs of the hawk or disturbances. The possibility of a predator amidst the birds sent chills through her. Every second mattered. With a deep breath, Avery quickened her pace, determined to find the hawk before it could cause any harm. In a secluded corner of the section, Avery found Dave, the guard, asleep in his chair, completely oblivious to the chaos outside. His snores echoed faintly in the silent room. Avery exchanged a look of disbelief with Jamie. How could he be asleep at such a critical time? They cautiously approached him, their frustration mounting with each step. Dave's unawareness of the hawk's presence and the potential danger it posed was alarming. Avery gently shook Dave's shoulder, trying to wake him. His eyes fluttered open, confusion etched on his face. "What's happening? Avery, Jamie, why are you here?" he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. The sound of his disoriented voice filled the room. Avery quickly explained the situation, her words tumbling out in a rush. Dave sat up, still struggling to grasp the severity of the situation unfolding in the sanctuary. "Dave, have you seen a hawk in here?" Avery asked urgently. Dave, now more alert, shook his head. "No, I haven't seen anything unusual," he replied, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Avery and Jamie exchanged worried glances. Dave's lack of awareness about the hawk's presence only added to their anxiety. It was clear that he had no idea about the predator that could be lurking in the sanctuary. Avery's frustration grew. Dave's cluelessness about the hawk's presence meant they were on their own. "How could you not notice a hawk here?" she asked, her voice a mix of disbelief and concern. Jamie sighed, realizing that relying on Dave for help would be futile. They needed to act fast and couldn't afford to waste time convincing Dave of the gravity of the situation. Deciding to leave Dave out of their immediate plans, Avery and Jamie quickly conferred. "We need to check every inch of this place ourselves," Avery said, her tone resolute. Jamie nodded in agreement. They knew time was of the essence, and every moment spent in indecision could mean more danger for the birds. With a shared sense of purpose, they set out to continue their search, leaving a bewildered Dave behind. As Avery and Jamie proceeded with their search, Avery noticed something unusual, a trail of feathers on the ground. The feathers were small and grey, scattered in a pattern that suggested movement. "Look, Jamie, this could be a clue," Avery said, pointing to the trail. The feathers seemed to form a path, leading away from the main area of the rehabilitation section. Hope flickered in Avery's eyes. This could be the lead they needed. With cautious steps, Avery and Jamie followed the feather trail. Each feather seemed to beckon them further into a less explored part of the sanctuary. The path twisted and turned, leading them away from the familiar sounds and sights of the main garden. Their pace quickened, driven by the possibility of finding the hawk. The trail of feathers, like breadcrumbs, guided them deeper into the sanctuary's heart. The feather trail led them down a narrow path, overgrown and clearly less frequented. Vines and foliage brushed against their arms as they made their way through. Avery felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. This part of the bird garden was unfamiliar to her, and she wondered what secrets it might hold. The path wound its way through dense greenery, creating a sense of isolation from the rest of the sanctuary. As they continued, Avery realized they were in an area of the garden she had never seen before. The vegetation was denser here, and the sounds of the familiar bird calls were distant and muffled. "I didn't even know this part existed," Avery whispered, her curiosity piqued. The unfamiliarity of the terrain added an element of unpredictability to their search, but Avery's determination to find the hawk remained steadfast. Finally, the trail led them to a secluded enclosure, hidden away behind thick foliage. The enclosure was different from the others, more isolated and less accessible. Avery approached it carefully, her heart racing with anticipation. Could this be where the hawk was hiding? The enclosure's secluded location and the trail of feathers leading to it hinted at a significant discovery. Avery and Jamie exchanged glances, preparing to uncover what lay within. Inside the hidden enclosure, Avery and Jamie discovered an area distinctly different from the rest of the bird garden. It was equipped with advanced equipment and several unusual bird habitats. Avery found documents that revealed the area was used for experimental bird studies, some of which appeared controversial. The realization that the bird garden was involved in such secretive experiments sent a wave of shock through Avery. She felt a sense of betrayal, her trust in the sanctuary's mission waning. Avery stood in stunned silence, the documents in her hand shaking slightly. "I can't believe this. They've been conducting experiments on the birds," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Her face reflected shock and disbelief. The bird garden had always been a place of refuge and healing in her eyes, and this revelation shattered that image. The moral conflict was evident in her eyes as she struggled to reconcile this new reality with her beliefs. Jamie, reading over Avery's shoulder, responded with a more measured tone. "It's not necessarily black and white, Avery. These experiments might be for a greater scientific understanding," she suggested, trying to offer a different perspective. Her pragmatic approach was an attempt to rationalize what they had found, considering the potential benefits of the research. She believed that there might be justifiable reasons behind the experiments, despite their secretive nature. Avery wrestled with the ethical implications of their discovery. The thought of using birds for experimental purposes, especially in a sanctuary, was deeply troubling to her. "But at what cost, Jamie? These are living creatures, not just subjects for research," she argued, her voice laced with moral conflict. The weight of the dilemma was heavy on her shoulders, torn between her love for birds and the potential scientific advancements the experiments represented. After a moment of heavy silence, Avery made a decision. "We need to find out more. We can't just ignore this," she declared, her resolve firming. Jamie nodded in agreement, understanding the importance of uncovering the full truth behind the experiments. They decided to delve deeper into the purpose and extent of these experiments, determined to bring to light the realities hidden within the sanctuary's walls. Their quest for the truth had just taken an unexpected turn. Avery, with Jamie by her side, marched into the sanctuary's main office, her determination evident. She confronted the management about the hidden area and its secretive experiments. "How can you justify using a sanctuary for these kinds of experiments?" Avery demanded, her voice filled with a mix of anger and disbelief. The management looked taken aback, not expecting such a confrontation. Avery awaited their response, her stance unwavering. The sanctuary's management composed themselves quickly. "Avery, you must understand, these experiments are vital for scientific research," they began, trying to justify their actions. They spoke of the potential benefits, how the research could contribute to bird conservation and rehabilitation techniques. Their defense was articulate, citing scientific advancements and greater good, but Avery wasn't convinced. The moral implications of their actions seemed to be an afterthought in their explanation. Avery stood firm, unswayed by the management's defense. "Scientific progress should not come at the expense of the well-being of these birds," she argued passionately. The management insisted on the necessity of their work, but Avery saw it as a betrayal of the sanctuary's mission. The air was thick with tension as Avery found herself increasingly at odds with the management's justifications, her trust in the sanctuary's ethos waning. Jamie, observing the heated exchange, stepped in to mediate. "Let's try to see both perspectives," she suggested, her voice calm and rational. She acknowledged the importance of Avery's concerns about the bird's welfare while also recognizing the potential benefits of the research. Jamie's pragmatic approach aimed to find a middle ground in the moral debate, but the divide between Avery and the management seemed to deepen. After the confrontation, Avery found herself in a state of inner turmoil. She walked through the gardens, her mind racing with conflicting thoughts. Her commitment to bird welfare clashed with the revelations about the sanctuary's practices. Avery questioned her role at the bird garden and her own ethical stance. The sanctuary had always been her sanctuary too, and now she felt lost, unsure of her place in it. The manager ran after Avery. She wanted to disclose the hawk's involvement in the sanctuary. Avery learned that the hawk was part of a controlled predator-prey study designed to observe natural behaviours and improve rehabilitation strategies for prey birds. This revelation added another layer to the situation, complicating Avery's understanding of the hawk's presence. The hawk, initially perceived as a threat, was actually a crucial participant in a scientific study. The management further explained the study's purpose, emphasising its potential benefits in understanding bird behaviour and survival skills. This research, they argued, could lead to better conservation strategies. Avery listened intently, her emotions a mix of scepticism and intrigue. The study's goals suggested a deeper level of complexity to the hawk's presence, challenging Avery's initial perception of the situation. As Avery processed this information, her perspective on the hawk began to shift. What she had seen as a straightforward threat to the sanctuary's birds was now a part of a larger, more intricate scientific narrative. This new understanding forced her to reconsider her initial reaction to the hawk. The bird was no longer just an intruder, but a key component in a study with potential conservation implications. Jamie, ever the realist, helped Avery navigate these revelations. "We need to consider the bigger picture," Jamie advised. Her pragmatic viewpoint shed light on the importance of research in advancing knowledge, even when it challenged their comfort zones. Jamie's approach helped Avery grapple with the complex interplay between ethical concerns and scientific exploration, providing a broader context to the situation. Despite Jamie's insights and the management's explanations, Avery remained conflicted. The knowledge that the hawk was part of a study did little to ease her concerns about its impact on the other birds. She understood the scientific value, but couldn't shake off her innate concern for the welfare of all birds in the sanctuary. Avery's internal struggle reflected the often challenging balance between conservation efforts and individual animal welfare. As Avery and Jamie continued their work at the bird garden, the tension between them grew. Avery's strong moral stance on the hawk's presence and the hidden experiments clashed with Jamie's more pragmatic approach. Their conversations, once easy and full of shared enthusiasm for their work, now often ended in disagreements and a heavy silence. The strain was evident, with each trying to reconcile their differing viewpoints while maintaining their professional relationship. Avery felt increasingly isolated in her moral stance. Her frustration was palpable as she struggled to understand Jamie's pragmatic perspective, which seemed to downplay her ethical concerns. She often found herself alone in the garden, pondering the situation, feeling misunderstood and unsupported. Avery's dedication to the birds' welfare was unwavering, but she felt a growing disconnect with Jamie, who she had always considered not just a colleague, but a friend. Jamie, noticing Avery's distress, attempted to bridge the gap between them. She approached Avery with words of comfort, trying to explain her point of view, emphasizing the need to balance ethical concerns with the potential benefits of the research. However, their views were too divergent, and the conversation quickly became another debate, leaving both feeling more frustrated and less understood than before. Alone in the serene environment of the bird garden, Avery took a moment to reflect. She pondered her values, her commitment to bird welfare, and her place within the sanctuary. The garden had always been a source of peace and purpose for her, but now it was tinged with conflict and moral dilemmas. She questioned her future at the bird garden and whether she could continue to work in an environment that conflicted with her principles. Despite the growing tension and differing views, the bond between Avery and Jamie was resilient. They had shared too many moments of joy and success in their work to let their current disagreements sever their friendship. Their mutual respect and the memories of better times kept the foundation of their relationship intact. Even in moments of disagreement, it was clear that their friendship, though tested, remained a strong and vital part of their lives. In the midst of their strained relationship, Avery and Jamie received a tip from a fellow worker about a hawk spotted in a specific rehabilitation nest. With a mix of apprehension and urgency, they made their way to the location. The thought of finally finding the hawk brought a renewed focus to their mission. As they navigated through the bird garden, their differences seemed to fade into the background, overshadowed by the task at hand. As they neared the nest, Avery and Jamie moved with heightened caution. The possibility of what they might find loomed large in their minds. Avery's heart raced with a mix of fear and hope. Would they find the hawk preying on another bird, or something else entirely? Their steps were measured and quiet, each aware of the delicate situation they were about to face. The tension between Avery and Jamie was palpable as they approached the nest. Every step brought them closer to the moment of truth, and the air was thick with anticipation. Avery's hands trembled slightly, betraying her nervousness. Jamie's eyes were focused, reflecting a sense of resolve. The uncertainty of what lay ahead in the nest hung heavily between them, heightening the suspense. Finally, they reached the nest. Avery and Jamie exchanged a brief, nervous glance before peering inside. Their hearts pounded in unison as they prepared themselves for the worst. The nest, carefully constructed and nestled among the branches, held secrets they were about to uncover. Time seemed to slow as they inched closer, ready to confront whatever situation awaited them in the nest. To their astonishment, the scene inside the nest was not one of predation, but of a surprising, gentle interaction. The hawk, far from harming the small bird, appeared to be protecting it. Avery's eyes widened in disbelief, while a look of wonder spread across Jamie's face. The hawk's nurturing behavior towards the small bird was unexpected, challenging their previous assumptions and bringing a new perspective to their understanding of nature's complexities. Avery watched, mesmerized, as the hawk tenderly interacted with the small bird. This scene of nurturing was contrary to everything she had expected. The hawk's gentle demeanor and the apparent trust of the small bird unveiled a bond that transcended the usual predator-prey dynamic. Avery felt a profound sense of awe and confusion as she witnessed this unlikely alliance, challenging her understanding of the natural order. This unexpected display of care by the hawk led Avery to question her long-held beliefs about nature's relationships. It was a revelation that nature could manifest in ways she hadn't imagined. The hawk, once seen as a mere predator, now represented something more complex and profound. Avery's perception of the natural world shifted, opening her mind to the nuances and unpredictability of wildlife interactions. The scene before her sparked a deep emotional epiphany in Avery. She felt a surge of humility and wonder, realizing that nature held mysteries beyond her comprehension. The simplistic labels of predator and prey seemed inadequate to describe the intricate tapestry of life she was witnessing. This moment of realization was not just intellectual, it was a profound, heartfelt understanding of the complexity and beauty of nature. Jamie, observing Avery's emotional journey, offered her perspective. "Nature has its own set of rules, sometimes beyond our understanding," she said gently. Her words were a comfort to Avery, helping her to process this new revelation. Jamie's pragmatic and supportive approach provided Avery with the grounding she needed, helping her reconcile her feelings with the surprising reality they had discovered. Together, Avery and Jamie reflected on the complexity and unexpected harmony they had witnessed. This experience had broadened their view of nature, revealing a world where relationships were not just based on survival, but could also encompass care and protection. The sanctuary, once a place of straightforward conservation, now seemed like a microcosm of nature's vast and varied tapestry, full of surprises and lessons yet to be learned. Inspired by the profound lessons she had learned, Avery made a pivotal decision. She resolved to advocate for her beliefs more strongly within the bird garden. The nurturing hawk had reshaped her understanding, and she felt compelled to integrate these insights into the sanctuary's approach. Avery was determined to champion a philosophy that acknowledged and respected the intricate, sometimes unexpected relationships within the natural world, even within the confines of the sanctuary. Avery and Jamie began to discuss the potential changes that could be implemented at the bird garden. They envisioned policies that would better reflect the complex dynamics of nature they had witnessed. These changes included more comprehensive educational programs about wildlife interactions and a re-evaluation of the sanctuary's research practices to ensure they aligned with ethical conservation principles. The idea was to transform the bird garden into a place that not only protects, but also educates about nature's diverse realities. The hawk and the small bird, in their unique relationship, became a powerful symbol for the bird garden. They represented the unexpected harmony that can exist in nature, challenging conventional ideas about predator and prey. Avery and Jamie proposed using this remarkable story as part of the sanctuary's educational outreach, illustrating the complexity and beauty of natural relationships. This symbol of coexistence offered a hopeful message about the potential for understanding and balance in the natural world. Emboldened by these experiences, Avery felt ready to embrace a new chapter in her life. This chapter wasn't just about her role at the bird garden, it was a personal journey of growth and understanding. Avery felt a renewed sense of purpose, both in her career and in her approach to wildlife conservation. She was eager to apply her newfound perspectives and to continue learning from the intricate tapestry of life that surrounded her. The story concludes with Avery looking toward the future with hope and a renewed sense of purpose. The bird garden, once a place of straightforward conservation, was now a beacon of deeper understanding and respect for nature's complexities. Avery, with Jamie by her side, was ready to lead this transformation, inspired by the lessons learned from the hawk and the small bird. The sanctuary stood poised to embark on a new path, one that embraced the unexpected harmony and beauty of the natural world.